I'm very happy to see you guys here on this presentation. Short course, short introduction to Lezgi, which is a fascinating language that I've spent a good deal of time during the last 15 years or so interacting with. First and foremost, what is Lezgi? I realized that it is not exactly a household name, even among the language enthusiasts. So Lezgi is one of the largest languages of East Caucasian family, which is spoken, no surprise, in the eastern part of Caucasus. The most well-known language of that family is probably Chechen. Lezgi is spoken by over 500,000 people, and also in other countries, also, for instance, in Turkey and in the US. I think Lezgi is quite remarkable. It's very different from big languages of Europe. It's very different also from better known languages of East Asia, for instance. But on the other hand, it's quite when compared to its sister languages, it's relatively easy to find resources. Lezgi speakers are relatively well educated in Lezgi. That means they have some familiarity with the written language, with the standard language, which is not exactly a given. So it's helpful from the point of view of outsider trying to learn it. This presentation obviously is in English, but the most important intermediary language, if you are interested in learning more about Lezgi, it's easiest to do it via Russian or Azerbaijani, especially Russian. Vast majority of Lezgis living in the Caucasus, I'm not talking about the diaspora, are fully competent in Russian, Azerbaijani, or both. And those two are also the main sources of loans. There's a lot of so-called Oriental loan words coming from Azerbaijani. Those are words of Arabic, Persian, and Turkic origin. But there's quite a high percentage of them among the Lezgi vocabulary. But there is also a very important layer of Russian loan words. So, for instance, I mean, from a practical point of view, if you don't know any particular word in Lezgi, you can try to make do by substituting the Russian equivalent or the Azerbaijani equivalent, and in most of the time you will not be wrong. Okay, so I'm not going to teach you how to speak Lezgi in 45 minutes. This is not possible. What I'm planning to do is just to give you the very basics of Lezgi small talk, and on that basis to illustrate bits and pieces of its pronunciation and grammar structure. Bear in mind that I'm not Lezgi. I'm not fluent in it. I'm not a proficient speaker of it. So that's one caveat. The second one is that this presentation is short. It is very cursory. So there's a lot of things that I will not be talking about. And of course, as I said, many Lezgis are familiar with the literary standard, but what they speak is usually quite different from it. So if you have any other contact with Lezgi further on, be prepared that it will be a language that differs in details. It can get confusing, but I think it's an exercise really worth trying. The most important thing, and that's a Lezgi saying that I really like. Zatimilnik Zafia. This means that even one bit, even a little bit, is already a lot. I think that's very true, especially when you are learning something new and something very different, challenging. Every step counts. And this is very much so with languages, especially minority languages. I think. Okay. So if there are there is one thing I would like you to get from this presentation as the two basic Lezgi words that you can use. The one, salam, which is greeting, which is a way to say hello. It may be familiar because it's a very common in various Muslim cultures all around wherever Islam has spread. It is used. So it's salam is Lezgi. By the way, I'm everywhere in presentation. I'm using the standard Lezgi orthography and my transcription system, which doesn't use any diacritics. I devised it a long time ago when it was a bit more problematic to go beyond the standard set of English letters. So the first important word is salam. The second important word, and this is perhaps the most characteristic, the most often occurring Lezgi word, is sagrai. Sagrai. This means be healthy, but it corresponds in its usage. It corresponds to thank you. So it's a way of to express appreciation, but it also corresponds to goodbye. And it also occurs in this expression sagrai lezgiyar. This literally means Lezgis be healthy. Lezgiyar is plural of Lezgi. So Lezgi is Lezgi person, and Lezgiyar Lezgis, Lezgi people. Sagrai Lezgiyar means long something along the lines of long live Lezgis, and it's a sort of an ethnic slogan, a slogan of ethnic pride. So it's actually something people use most of the time when they write to each other, and when they do it in Russian. But if they add a single thing in Lezgi in otherwise Russian text, this is the closing formula. This is very very frequent, very well known also among the other ethnicities of Dagestan, that Lezgis do say that. Okay. If I were to give you an outline of the Lezgi phonology, it would have taken basically the whole 45 minutes, and I'm not going to do it. But I'm right in the chat. I'm sending you a couple of files which contain a more detailed description of Lezgi sound system, and also elements of grammar that I won't have time to discuss during the talk. I realize that especially those of you who are on your smartphones may have trouble accessing it. If so, please contact me after the presentation. I'll be happy to send the files over. In any way that any other way that you prefer. But long story short, Lezgi has not too many vowels. What's characteristic about its vowel system is that it doesn't have the vowel O. Of course, it occurs in both Russian and Azerbaijani, so really Lezgis are familiar with it. But originally, it doesn't have O. But it has lots of consonants, depending on the analysis and depending on the dialect, between 56 to even 60. This is quite a high number, and it is caused by a lot of phonetic contrasts. So, for instance, most of the consonants have labialized and non-labialized version. Labialization is basically pronouncing a consonant with lip rounding, rounded lips, as if a short w sound would be pronounced after the consonant. And also they contrast between aspirated and unaspirated versions. So aspirated consonants are those which are pronounced with a release of air, puff of air after the sounds, like word initial stops in English. And on one hand, you have a word like tar. This is tar. This is unaspirated T sound at the beginning. It means tree. And tar, this is aspirated T, and it means actually it means tar. It's the name of a musical instrument. So there are two h-like sound. Actually, sorry, three h-like sounds in Lezgi. The first one is very similar to the English h, and there are two h sounds. One spelled by h with the soft sign is actually acoustically quite similar to Russian, and the other is pronounced further back. It's very important to distinguish them because they contrast in some really high frequency words, such as chana, to become, and chana, to break or to give birth. Okay, perhaps the most characteristic sounds of Lezgi and of many other languages of Caucasus are abruptives, also known as adjectives, which are pronounced with short stop of the airflow in your glottis, in your throat, simultaneously to make making the actual sound. So it creates acoustically the impression of something very abrupt, very explosive sound. Okay, so for instance, we have sounds such as t, p, k, t, ch. In Lezgi, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are marked in writing by a special sign. This is the only addition to the Cyrillic that Lezgi uses. This is the sign which looks like uppercase I. It's called palochka or tal in Lezgi, and it's used very frequently because it marks the adjectives, which are quite frequently occurring consonants. So, for instance, the word for Lezgi language in Lezgi is Lezgi chal, with adjective abruptive ch at the very beginning. Lezgi chal, Lezgi language. What's also characteristic is that there is a lot of sounds pronounced in the back of your throat, so to speak. There's a lot of uvular sounds. Think of k, 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 g, but pronounced further back. So first, pull your tongue backwards, and then try to pronounce k in that position. So it's not k, but k, k, k. And then there's also a lot of contrasts in that position. It can be aspirated, unaspirated. It can be adjective. So there is k and there's k. The first one unaspirated, the second adjective. In some dialects, there are some sounds which are pronounced in the pharynx, so further down the vocal tract. Those are mostly in Arabic borrowings. So it's a h and a. So it's the ain of Arabic and the h of Arabic. They don't exist in literal Lezgi. Okay, let's talk a bit about how you address people. The first thing is that in Lezgi there is no such. I mean, traditionally there was no such thing as polite form of address. Everybody would use the same second person singular pronoun. It's vun in the absolutive case. In the unmarked case, it's vun. But there is a tendency of using the second person plural pronoun kun, so corresponding to Russian v or French vous, for instance, to mark politeness. So this is probably spreading under Russian influence. One important term of address, and it's actually very characteristic of Lezgi speech. Even when they speak other languages, they use this word as a sort of filler. The word yada. Sorry, let me go back. Yada. It's used between males only, and it means it's basically a contraction of yagada. So hey boy. Okay, so this is but it's typical of Lezgi speech, and it's used without any meaning. Not only not only in the context of calling somebody's attention, but just in a flow of speech. So as I said, Yada comes from Yagada, and Gada means boy or son. Rush means daughter, and this is the way you address people who are of younger generation than you. Okay, you can address them by by using those terms, and basically the rule of using kinship terms which are appropriate to the age, to the perceived age difference between you. This applies widely. So the first pair, Gada Rush, it's a boy girl. It's for people visibly younger than you. Stcha Vach. Stcha is brother. Vach is sister. Dach Bach. This means older brother, older sister. It's for people who are slightly older than you. In some dialects, in some forms of Lezgi, these words mean also mom and dad. Okay, so there is a bit of confusion, and there is also the last part, chalu, chala, so uncle and aunt. So this is for people considerably older than yourself. So actually, a couple of weeks ago, I was addressed as Piotr Halu for the first time, which was a bit of a milestone in my contacts with the Lezgis. Okay, so you don't have to use kinship terms. You can when talking to your friends, you can call them your friends. So the basic word for friend is dust. It's a Persian word originally, but there is a very interesting Lezgi variant of it, dustkas, literally friend person, and you can use it. Then there is quite a lot of modifying and the kinship terms they can combine with the with proper names. So you can say Piotr Stcha, brother Piotr, okay, or I don't know, Uneizat Chala, so Aunt Uneizat. So they combine. And then they also combine, the kinship terms also combine with words like igrami, which means dear, or chan. Chan literally means soul, but it's also used to mean dear. Okay, so you can say chan stcha, dear brother, as a nice, polite and warm way of addressing someone. Okay, so that would be it for the forms of address. Now let's talk a bit more about asking people how they are. The basic way of asking that question is hik yavun. Hik means how. There is a adjective k sound at the end. Hik yavun. It literally means how are you. Okay, this ksaniani means are you well. Ya means Ksan means well, ya are or is, and ni is a particle which forms yes/no questions. So and then it's it can be added to any almost any verb form. Okay, so the most common answers to the basic question are Ksania, I am good, or it is good, or pistush. It's not bad. So tush is a single word. It means it's not. Okay, it's not. I am not. Again, good news is one of the good news of one of the things that makes Lezgi relatively more accessible than its sister languages is that there is no conjugation by person, by gender, by noun class. Those things don't exist in language. So in Lezgi language, so we can use the same verb forms throughout. Okay, if you want to be more elaborate, you can ask more detailed questions. So Vikefer halar hikya. This means how are you? How are your V, your, kefer, it's pleasures, halar, conditions, states, vikefer halar hikya, or vikefiar halar hikya. Again, you can also ask vikrar hikya. Krar is the plural form of noun kar. It means work. So basically, how are the things that are at work? Your works, how are? Another type of questions is vuch chabarar ava. Vuch means what. Chabarar is a plural of the noun chabar, which is news, piece of news. So what pieces of news, ava, are there? So this is a very interesting characteristic of Lezgi, is that there is quite a lot of verbs corresponding to various functions of the English or Polish verb to be. So ja is the verb to be when it has the sense of equivalence. Somebody is something or has a certain property. But when you talk about existence, you use the verb ava. So vuch chabarar ava, what news are there? And then normally what you would answer would be something like tzi chabar avach. Tzi means new, chabar, piece of news, avach, there is not. And this is the verb ya was negated by using the verb tush, but normally most of Lezgi verbs are negated, but verbal forms are negated by adding ch at the end. So ava means there is, avach, there is not. Okay, well, what you can also say, viri lap ksania, everything is very good. Okay, but normally when you greet people, you not only talk to ask about them, but you also usually you ask about their family too. So we can say vidu de buba hikya. Dida is mother, buba is father. Together, this means parents. Hikya, how are they? Okay, and normally when you ask, you also say aburuz di salamarce man. Aburuz di salamarce. Aburuz, to them, zi, my, salamar, greetings. This is the plural form of the word salam. It itself is a greeting, but it's also a noun meaning greeting. So salamar, greetings. So send to them my greetings. Man is a particle which sort of turns the makes the request softer, a bit more polite maybe. And tse is imperative form of the verb to give. So give them my greetings. If there was a single person, you would say adaz, not aburuz, but adaz. Adaz zi salamar tse. Okay. More about this very important and very useful verb of equivalence. Something is something. Im vuchia. What is this? This is how we say what is this in Lezgi. Am vuchia means what is that. So generally in Lezgi pronouns, e vowel signifies proximity and a vowel signifies distance. So im means this and am means that. And if you can also ask izat vuchia. Izat vuchia. Izat means this thing. Vuch, what is? What is this thing? Azat vuchia, what is that thing? Im saktabia. Im this saktabia. This is a book. Ktab, book. Again, this is an Oriental loan. It's originally an Arabic word, but it's used very often in Lezgi. Okay. So there is another question word, another important question word, vuj. Vuj means who. So to ask who are you, you say vun vuzia. To ask who is that, you would say am vuzia. Yes, am also is used that way. Vitwar vuzia or Vitwar Vujia is a very interesting case, because if you this means what is your name? Vitwar Vujia. So literally you can ask who is your name, and it will be correct. Some people use Vuj, who. Some people use Vuj, what, in asking that question. Another set of questions is Vun Hinaya, where are you from? So Hina means where, but Hinai means where from. Again, the yi sound is a marker of a series of case forms which express coming from a place. Okay, so you can contrast Vun Hinaya, where are you from, with Vun Hina Yashamish Zava, where do you live? Yashamish Zava means to live somewhere. It's a Turkic loan. And what's actually quite to me it's quite interesting is that the Turkic verbs, when they are borrowed into Lezgi, they are borrowed into this in this form with mish. I don't know. I mean, if you have are familiar with Turkic languages, this is quite striking. What's interesting is that in other types of questions, in questions using other types of verbs, you the pronoun changes. So you say vuna or na, hina kwalakzava, for instance, where do you work? Or vuna hina kelzava, where do you study? So it's not vun, but vuna and na or na, two different forms of the same word, but in a different case. Vuna kwalakzava tahaita student yani. Are you do you work, or are you a student? Zak elzama, I am still studying. So again, just highlighting that there is a series of forms expressing the meaning of still doing. Zak elzawa, I am studying. Zak elzama, I am still studying. So this is systematic in Lezgi. Okay, so when you ask somebody what does he or she do for a living, or you are asked that question, this is one of the instances where Russian or Turkic or Turkic or Arabic vocabulary comes in handy. Most of the profession names in Lezgi are basically loan words. So you say Doktor for doctor, Muallim for teacher, engineer for engineer, programmist for programmer, and many others. Okay, approaching slowly the end, what I wanted to highlight is another construction used when asking someone, when talking about speaking languages. We use yet another form of the pronoun. Vas hi chalar chida. Vas, literally to you, he, which, chalar, languages, chida. What languages do you know? Chida is the verb to know. Vas Lezgi chal chidani, do you know Lezgi? Chidani, again, ni serves as a marker for questions. So do you know Lezgi? Is Vas Lezgi chal chidani. Possible answers: yes, or two words, same meanings, each used in different set of dialects, but understood, both of them understood throughout. Anjachsat Emil, only a little. Sa is originally a numeral, meaning one, so only one bit. And va means no. It's very important to add the glottal stop at the end. Okay, so if you want to be more elaborate, you can say Zaz Lezgi chal chsan chidach. I don't know Lezgi very well. Okay, let's skip a bit, perhaps. Another note is when talking in a language, you use a construction Lezgi chalal rahan. So this verb form chalal literally means on a language. So you just like in Russian, you would say я говорю на лезгинском, so on Lezgi, that's the equivalent. And the last sentence, Lezgi chal gzav asant, Lezgi chal gzav asantia. This would mean Lezgi is very easy. Lezgi chal gzav chetin tush. Lezgi is not very difficult. So asant means easy, chetin means difficult. And then basically in the previous 3 slides, you would see 3 different constructions with 3 different pronoun sets used depending on the type of sentence. So in intransitive sentence, the subject is in what's called absolutive case. So for instance, I would be zun qvalis fizva, I am going home. But when a sentence expresses an action which has an actual object, it's somebody is doing something to something or somebody else. I am working from home. So working is an active verb. So yeah, I don't say zun, but za. And just like with knowing a language, with seeing, loving, hearing, very specific set of verbs, of emotions or senses, sensory experience, you use yet another form. So vaz zichwa akunani, did you see my son? Vaz, literally to you, zichwa, my son, akunani, was seen. But there's, of course, there is more. There is quite a lot of interesting verbal and nominal constructions in Lezgi. This is just the absolute bare bones. To finish off with yet another basic question: how old are you? The shumudisia. So your how many year is the shumudisia. And in answer I would say the yachturni saisia. This means I am 41. And by the way, Lezgi is using vigesimal counting system with 20 used as a base. So for instance, when you say 37, you would say kannitserit. So literally it means 20 and 17. Okay, so that would be it for this brief introduction. You will have quite a lot more info including on the case system in the files that I've sent. On this slide, you can see. I mean, I didn't want to like flood you with resources, but you can see the what I consider to be the most useful addresses, and we still have 10 minutes or so. So if you have any questions or suggestions, I will be happy to answer them. I have seen that there was some discussion on the chat. So yes, there are 3 different language families native to the Caucasus region, and there is no established kinship among them, though typologically there is a lot of similarities. So their sound systems are a bit similar, various aspects of grammar, but there is no genetic relation between the different Caucasian families. I don't as regards the first person singular forms, I don't know. In general, there is a quite significant layers of Iranian influence going in Lezgi, going back to perhaps perhaps to times before the Arab conquest. So not from so loans not from modern Persian, but from earlier Iranian languages, which were spoken on the Caucasus, in the Eastern Caucasus region for a very long time, including in the lands inhabited by the Lezgis. One important bit, I'm not really that familiar with Ossetic, but one important source of loans into Lezgi has been the Juhuri and Tat languages, the languages of Iranian-speaking populations living in Caucasus. So-called mountain Jews who speak Juhuri and Muslim Tats. So there are there is quite a number of loan words which seem not to be from Persian, but from another closely related language. For instance, the form of the word easy, which I use here, asant. This is oson. Oson is Persian, but asant in Tat, so that T suggests. How complex is the grammar? Well, it depends on what aspect of it. I mean, as I said, from some point of view, you don't, the verbs don't inflect for person. There is no grammatical gender, so that seems easy. But on the other hand, there is a lot of suppletion, which means that the various stems of word differ significantly. So for instance, you have the verb to give, which is gun, but its form, its imperative form is tse, which is completely unrelated. And that's that there is a lot of this happening in Lezgi. And that's probably the hardest point from the beginner's point of view, just to recognize the relationship between various forms of the same word. Okay, because that's not there is a lot of nominal cases, but they are regularly formed, which means they are easy to recognize. So that's not a difficulty. Okay, I think Chalo had raised his hand. Any similarity? I see your question in the chat. Any similarity with Lak or Rutul? Yes, of course. Especially with Rutul. Rutul is a language of Lezgic branch of the East Caucasian family, but it's not mutually intelligible with Lezgi. Some Rutuls know Lezgi, but they learned it as a second language. The languages closest to Lezgi are Agul and Tabasaran, but they are both of them are internally very divided. So there are some dialects of Agul which are close, and some which are not so close to Lezgi. But in general, those are the two languages that I can understand a bit of it. Basing my based on my knowledge of Lezgi. Again, Chalo, I again saw your hand. I don't know if you had another question. If so, please ask it. In the meantime.
Yeah, I was thinking if you can compare the use of ergative in the different Lezgi versus overall languages in the Caucasian area. For instance, okay. Is the ergative use of Lezgi very different from the ergativity in Georgian?
As far as I know, Georgian is split ergative. That is, ergative is only used in perfect tenses, whereas in Lezgi is throughout. Okay, so it's for all verbal forms.
And in other languages like Rutul, or is it the same use of ergative?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure, but I think so. Yes. And so when it comes to I think you asked about Rutul and Lak. So Lak is also East Caucasian, but different branch. So it's there is zero mutual intelligibility. But if you if you compare, for instance, the structure of case systems, it's easy to see that they, and also basic vocabulary, it's easy to see that they have a lot in common historically. Is it always clear to native speakers which consonant sound is being used if they are very close to one another? In general, yes. It's true that the distinctions are small, so the space is crowded, but the context, is sufficient to make sense of it. There is no. I mean, I don't speak Lezgi. I mean, my pronunciation is nowhere near like what it should be. So I'm sure that I mess up the sounds quite a bit. I mean, I tried not to during the presentation, but there was this has never like caused any misunderstanding. So it's there is I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is a bit of redundancy built in, so you don't really rely on pronouncing everything 100% correct. Okay, I think I covered all. Please, if you had any problems with the files, or you have any questions that I neglected to treat adequately, or elsewhere, any comments, here you have my contact details, my email, my Twitter handles, and my Telegram accounts. Whichever works for you. I'm really ready to interact and oh, actually I see that I have a spelling error here. It's the R is missing, so it's Can Sagrai. Thanks a lot. Thank you for taking your time to be here, listen to this short presentation, and yeah, I'll see you around during the Polyglot gathering and maybe elsewhere. Thank you.